Hello, everybody. Welcome to the FightFit Podcast. I'm with my man, Mark Derrick, today. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you very much for having me.
We're going to be talking predominantly about a project that Mark's had in the making for a long time, the MD Strength Centre here at FightFit South Melbourne.
Yep.
There's an EDM that's just going out today on the day that this podcast is being released.
Yep.
One has already gone out, and if you want any more information, if you're not on the database, you can check out MD Strength on Instagram. Puff out your chest there, Mark. Let's see. MD Strength.
I'm trying to suck my stomach in.
So make sure you check it out. So how's it all going, man? You're setting up the gym downstairs.
Yeah, so the back area is slowly coming along. I'm hoping to get a lot of things, I suppose, operational or usable for clients I'm currently taking over the next sort of few weeks. I still have a sort of a 6-week wait on some equipment that I'm after from America that's coming over. So yeah, basically, my goal is to sort of create a premium setup for everyone.
And it's basically, if you had to like sort of summarize what exactly MD Strength Centre is.
Basically, it's the service that I already offer is a lifting crew service whereby people come in and they train for whatever goal that they want, and I sort of work with them with their programming. We work on their nutrition, and then I coach them sort of in a face-to-face capacity there as well. So I've got different coaching times during the week. So usually there'll be sort of 3-hour blocks. People come in anytime they like in between them. So they get the face-to-face service, and they also get the accountability outside of that. So they get the nutritional support. So I use an app for their nutrition. I use an app for their programming as well. So let's say they do miss a face-to-face session with me, and they have learnt how to train properly. They can then complete that session by themselves as well. Yeah.
So it's the sort of a much more rounded service of what you do.
It's more of a complete package. So I mean,
having your own section as well is pretty cool.
Oh yeah, it's something. Yeah, I've always wanted.
I was saying it's better than the basketball hoop we used to have there.
I know some of the kids will disagree with you.
Yeah, yeah.
I think I'm public enemy number one for the Fit Kids class.
Two people ever use that. Yeah. So I think they can cop it on the chin. To be honest.
Thank you. I hope so. We'll hopefully see some good lifts coming out of that area. So
absolutely. And I came in this week. I'm back from South America.
Yep.
2 months.
Looking good.
Lots of beers and cigarettes, and I'm a very unhealthy man right now.
Yeah, we'll get it.
And I'm in desperate need of some help.
Yep.
So I came in.
Yep.
And I had screenshots of my Arnold Schwarzenegger program.
Yep.
That I was going to stick by religiously. 6 days a week. I'm up at 6 a.m. New 2020, new me.
Yeah.
But you've offered me a much better alternative.
Well, it's any program I say will work. Any program will work if you stick to it, and I just think there's probably more optimal ways of doing things to start with. So a little bit more, I suppose, a little bit more of a guided approach there.
Yeah.
So there's an emphasis on quality of movement, not necessarily as many heaps and heaps and heaps of exercise with ridiculous number of sets. Every set you're doing is a quality-based set, and every exercise is in there for a purpose. And if something's not in there, there's no sort of fluff exercises. If there's an exercise in there, it's in there for a reason, and it's got to be progressing some way. The progression can come from obviously increasing weight, increasing the number of reps, decreasing the rest interval, increasing the frequency across the week, but there has to be some sort of progress made with it. I think we found that out the other day. This morning. We as this is being released on Sunday, we're filming on Thursday. Yeah. You found out this morning. I took you through what you thought was a bit of a working set, and then we sort of had a chat about it at the end, and we probably agreed you probably still had about another 10 reps left in the tank, if we're being pretty honest. It was not a heavy weight, but we sort of talked about optimal ranges of where to take a working set and how a working set should feel, and then we looked at one, we performed it. You probably, if we, I said gun to the head, you probably had 2 reps left in the tank. So it's a pretty tough set, but you could probably still bang out another rep or 2. And I said, there you go. That's what, that should feel like there. And then I said, right, now imagine the program you just had with all the number of, all the sets, all the reps, and you just looked at the volume. I said, could you perform that on every exercise? Now you probably could, but then the fatigue cost would be pretty high, and then the weights you'd be lifting by the end are going to be pretty light.
Right.
The quality of movement will just go out the window.
So for somebody like me, I've actually never had a strength program of any. You probably wouldn't be able to tell by my physique, but I've actually never done that.
That's right.
Never done many weights.
You're wearing light colours trying to look bigger. I'm wearing dark colours trying to look smaller.
Exactly right. But I've never really done anything like this before. I've done a lot of boxing.
Yep.
I did my nutrition with Michelle, who you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So for someone like me, I'm very green to all of this. What's the perfect way to start?
I could go on about this for ages, but literally just follow I know you brought in a program. I said there's probably a more optimal way, but to be completely honest, any program that you follow that you're consistent with will get you results. Now, what you've already said, you've already worked with Michelle in relation to the nutrition. So I find that that's probably more of the battle than the training. As a sports nutritionist myself, it's really, really hard. That's the harder thing to control, because if I'm seeing people in a face-to-face capacity and training them in a face-to-face capacity, you can make the tweaks you need with the program. That's a lot easier, or the technique and the way you want people to do things. But I'm not at home with them in the kitchen prepping meals and things, so it's always a little bit harder from that side.
You're
so
kind of be accountable with your own nutrition,
and especially when you're trying to take we can make it a lot easier, and a lot of I suppose transformations or challenges do. I just write you up a generic meal plan and say, don't deviate from this, follow this, and don't deviate, and you will lose a ton of weight, or you will put on a ton of weight, but is it really going to be optimal for you? You get as lean as possible. With your goal here, you're trying to sort of put on a little bit of muscle mass, so we're going to look at eating a little bit more than probably what you were used to in the past there. But we still want to try and maintain a lean physique, so we want to try and be as healthy as possible as we do that. We don't want to just sort of, as a lot of people say, just dirty bulk and eat a ton of food just because they have to hit, they're like, oh, I've got to hit 5,000 calories or something, If you've started eating...
That'd be nice.
If you started eating a certain number of calories, so what you're off before, if you all of a sudden I just go, no, we got to put on weight and here's 5,000 calories, get it all down, I think that's a really stupid way to go about things, and you're just going to put on a lot of fat as you do that. So either way, it's got to be progressive. So we're progressively increasing or we're progressively decreasing with the calories. So with our, with the macronutrients, for you, because you understand how macronutrients work, we can go straight into that. Some people, it's hard. If you set macros for some people, it's a silly way of doing it, because they've got no concept of, what 100 grams of protein looks like, or so it's probably better to take. I think you started with this as well. You took some pictures of your meals and then gradually sort of got educated about that. This is what this looks like.
Michelle made me take photos and send them to her, like pretty much everything that I was eating.
I start with some of my clients like that as well. So it gives them a good visual.
I was sending her selfies of me eating like ice creams.
But it's fantastic. It gives you a really good. It's a fantastic way to do it. It gives you a really good visual. But the other thing it's doing, it's making you almost get in your mind, like tracking around meal times type thing. So you sort of take a picture of it. So you're eating something you used to like, you track it straight away. So that way, if you're eating it, you can track your macros down the track, and it's a lot easier to do that. I think where people fall down, or they start tracking their macros too early, and it's all over the shot, because they're trying to track, like they might cook a chicken, let's say they might have a chicken risotto or something like that, and they type into, say, MyFitnessPal or any macro tracking software that they're using, chicken risotto. Now, in your chicken risotto, there may have been a lot different ingredients than the chicken risotto in the, the MyFitnessPal or whatever. So, the measurements will all be off, and next time you have chicken risotto, which might be later down the track, you might track it a little bit differently again. You'll use a different chicken risotto in, because there's a lot of different different items that you can track. So it's sort of being consistent and learning that. What I usually say is, however you cook it, make your recipe and track those ingredients.
Yeah.
And then that way how much is going in. So it is a little bit more tedious to start with.
But if you have your meal plans, you can then save everything to your favorites as well.
Correct.
And then you can just chuck it straight in.
And then it's more about education as well, because you're eating what you want. You're learning about what amounts you've got to be eating, but then you're cooking the foods that you like.
Yeah.
And then, we're sort of looking at amounts and making sure we're getting enough fiber in, which I think the way you did things before was fantastic. And, you got heaps of fiber, and, I'm not really going to have to worry about you, staying hydrated or getting enough vegetables and, things in like that. So,
yeah. And everyone's different, obviously, and that's a strength through working with Michelle in the past that I've got is being able to handle my nutrition quite well.
Yep.
But I find that I have a bit of wear and tear through boxing.
Yep.
And my hips are a bit out, and my balance probably isn't great. Yeah. So that would be something that I'd have. Do you have to really sort of manage everybody differently in their strengths and weaknesses?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, there's sort of two sides to things. Like, everyone is individual, but then at the same time, it's sort of like, you don't want to treat everyone like a special little snowflake either. So, strength works because you get stronger, you become more robust.
Treat me like a special little.
I will
snowflake.
treat you like a special little snowflake. Don't you worry. That's all right.
Carry on.
It's just sort of the mindset as well, because if I do that, this is from a coaching perspective. If you then you then have a reliance on everything that I'm giving you. You're not really learning everything. Everything's so individualized. Everything's so specific to what you need. Now, if you're an elite level athlete at the top end going for gold at the Olympics, everything's got to, you got to have your I's dotted, T's crossed.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's a lot more individualized. Everything's it's primed for that person, but it's not necessarily the healthiest either. So there's a difference between performance and health. And for most of my clients, I try and fit somewhere in between. So we're increasing performance, but unless someone's sort of going for an Olympic gold medal and really pushing their body to performance or to the levels of performance that they need to for that, most people are going to get really good benefit out of following a solid program, putting in something that is sustainable to the lifestyle that they have as well. Most people are working full time. They're they're not able to spend the hours after teeing up their nutrition. They don't have a personal chef or whatever cooking for them. They're not getting massages and a whole bunch of other recovery tools thrown in. So for most people, my big 3 for recovery, sleep, nutrition, hydration.
Right.
Do those 3 before you look at ice baths or anything else. Actually, ice baths for muscle building. Most of the research actually says that, or a lot of the research coming out now actually sort of says that it's dulling sort of hypertrophic responses, so muscle building responses. However, the ice baths are good for looking at things like anti-inflammation. So if you're in season playing football, it's probably a really good tool to use for recovery to get yourself up to play the next week. But if you're in, say, pre-season, you're trying to build muscle and that's your primary goal, and then you have an ice baths every week, it won't affect you a heap. But at the moment, a lot of the research is coming out saying it's probably not as good for you in that sense. So it can be good in some senses,
right, and
not as good in other. But I think a lot of people get fixated on all these other, I'll just use those as an example, all these other recovery modalities, but they're not getting 8 hours sleep. Their nutrition's absolutely rubbish, and they're drinking maybe 500 ml of water a day.
I found that the nutrition thing was really startling to me about the balance that you have to have between carbs, proteins, and fats, because my diet was so carb and protein, carb and fat heavy. And then I thought I ate a lot of protein, but I didn't eat enough, and I also didn't eat enough of the right proteins. And then my water intake, I'd say, was probably maybe half a litre a day on a good day before I started that.
That's it. That's what most people are saying. If they actually track what they're taking in, that's why sometimes taking
if you bunch together a day's meal for me before and then during,
you're probably eating a lot more.
I'd be eating a lot more, but a lot more vegetables. And then things like your egg whites, and then I wasn't as heavy with meat, and I wasn't as heavy with dairy and bread and that sort of stuff. But I was getting my nutrition from different places, and
it depends,
feeling much more nourished throughout the day.
And some people, I still love dairy. Some people are a bit intolerant to it or whatnot, but I still think it's fantastic to have a good source of protein, depending on what you're having as well. Good for calcium as well, just basically find a balance and something that works for you that you're able to sort of put into your lifestyle and go from there, and you'll be much more sustainable with your results.
So you've also going to have obviously a lot of sort of clients as well. You said you have 8 to 10 in a session, or
that as in at the moment it's quite small. I'm actually there's a couple of people coming in at the moment. I'm actually just sort of building this center and setting it all up. There's a lot of stuff on the back end, which it's an absolute.
You must be a busy boy trying to get everything all sorted.
It's a nightmare on the back end trying to it's all these I just I suppose my strength is my coaching, but I've got to sort of look at the other side of everything as well. So your marketing, your web design, all of that sort of stuff, which I hate.
And takes a long time. You underestimate how long it takes.
I do. I'm terrible. I'm getting better, but it is important. Sort of running things for the future as well. So I do have to look at it, but at the same time, I can't take away the quality of service for the client. So I'm not as big advertising at the moment with everything like that, but that'll all come out soon. So I want to make sure that anyone that comes in, they get the full level of service, and everyone's getting the same. So it's I'm not biting off more than I can chew, essentially.
And you're gonna have a lot of people from different walks of life, different shapes, sizes, age, and all of that. How do you how do you mesh those sessions and those people?
This is the real challenge for it, because I don't, people saying, I have a target audience or target, certain people. I'm like, I'll train anyone. Anyone can get progress. And it's really, the challenge is creating a community around what you have. Now, I've come from a coaching background, so I'm used to having bigger sessions with, managing larger groups in that sense, and then trying to create individualized services for those larger groups. Now, the challenge is here. Some people might come in. You might have someone who's a national level powerlifter or a top level boxer coming in with someone who's never lifted a weight before, and they're squatting next to them. And I think that's great. Everyone sort of pushes each other along. The goal is to try and get everyone to help each other out and create a community around getting stronger and lifting. People come in to change their body composition, but I still think that one of the rules on my board is, the scoreboard will always take care of itself. So you concentrate on if your goal is to change your body composition, concentrate on coming in, being progressive, getting stronger, sleep, nutrition, hydration, do all those things. Your body will take care of itself. It just will.
Right.
If you wake up every morning, you step on the scale, you look at yourself in the mirror, you do the same thing every day, you'll never notice a change, because you're you see yourself every day. Someone who hasn't seen you for 6 months, all of a sudden you've been consistent for 6 months, they see you like, holy crap, what have you done? Like, you look amazing, but you won't notice it yourself as much. So I think, we're our own worst enemies sometimes, and we can be quite harsh judging ourselves. So I've just gone off on a tangent again.
No. It's only gone into interesting territory.
Interesting territory. But as for, there's two sides to think about it. Like when you said, what type of people are you targeting? Who's going to come and train? Because there's going to be people of all different types of, or all walks of life. There's some school of thought that says, if you're training for performance, have people around at really high performance and they all push each other along. And they do. They do at a really high performance. Like, I'm talking people vying for Olympic selection, training at the highest level. It's not necessarily healthy, but they're pushing each other to their absolute limit, and they will play. They'll get up, they'll play well on the game day, and for a couple of years they'll be really good. But then what happens after that?
Yeah,
they're just unless they have that. Once that goes, there's nothing. How do you then create that environment again? So it's again, in that sense, it's sort of something I'm after that's a little bit more sustainable as well. So I like the fact that I can have a national level powerlifter squatting next to someone who's just come in and lifting, and then one of my other rules is make the person next to you stronger. So even though I'm coaching, if people have been with me longer and it's sort of that group setting, everyone's sort of helping out each other as well. So if someone's come in, they've been training for ages, and someone needs a spot, for instance, or spotting on the bench press, spotting on the, everyone's sort of training together. Spotting becomes part of training. Putting weights away, loading plates, all of that, it becomes part of the session, which gets back to, being so individual that you're such a, a special little snowflake that you need to have your plates loaded and you sit there, you need, your towel put down, and everything's got to be like that. If you need that, then I'd say that this service isn't for you.
Right.
It's probably, it's probably not. So my goal is to try and create a bit more, independence as well. But at the same time, not huge numbers of people, so it's completely unattainable. But everyone there training hard, everyone will have their own program. Some programs will be similar, but everyone will be lifting different weights.
Yep.
Some will be vastly different. You say, what type of programs do you run? Well, I run programs to increase strength. They'll look slightly different than programs to increase muscle mass, which might look slightly different, or probably a lot different than programs to increase athletic performance. A boxer's program might look slightly different than an endurance athlete's program.
Yep. So, the reason why I think that I've never done this sort of thing is because when I think powerlifting, when I think strength and stuff,
everyone thinks powerlifting.
I often just say, "Oh no, thank you, not for me. Yeah. I don't want to be with these big fucking jack gorillas trying to lift weights with them, and everyone's throwing their weights around and shit." But here at FightFit, we have obviously a different ethos. We have more of a community vibe,
and it depends what's it gets back to sort of the media as well. You see the big lifters getting up and they're shifting an absolute ton of weight, and then they're showing hype videos of their training and everything. That gets back to
you get all these like documentaries on Netflix at the moment, like the powerlifting,
West Side
and stuff.
versus the World.
Yeah, there's like 10 of them though. I was like, I was like, damn.
I love watching that.
Of course you would.
it was really good to watch. But again, that was talking about that performance mentality of, you know, you just got in and you were going to be the best, and you train, and you know, there's no excuses. I don't care if you've got all these issues. Like, it doesn't matter. You're training. We're doing it. That's not what I'm trying to create.
But that mentality doesn't work for most people. Like that mentality is for sort of these like special sort of like but the guys who absolutely love it. Like you'd fit in fine there, but me no.
I'd argue with that as well. I mean, maybe when I was younger, but you know, now I've got, you know, I'm getting married soon. Thank you very much.
She'll be watching.
She will be. There you go. You know, we got a place together. You know, Leanne, my partner, she's working full time.
Fan of the podcast, Leanne.
She is. Well, she better be. So there's other priorities in life as well that you know start to come in. You know, you've got to have that sort of work-life balance. One of the things for me that I'm trying to find, I've got to obviously train a little bit more myself because I'm putting so much effort into what I'm doing at the moment, and trying to find that balance is still quite difficult. But you know, if I was to say, you say, oh, you fit in perfectly in that situation, I would. Leanne would hate it, even though she's training now as well, and she loves her training. You know, she's training at a really good gym that fosters that culture. And shout out to Training Day down in Clayton as well. I mean, I think they run they have a fantastic centre, and it sort of fosters that community spirit where everyone helps each other out.
Right.
So yeah, essentially, with the area up there, that's sort of what you're trying to create. So, yeah, sort of, you know, like gets back to that. Who you're trying to train? Are we going full performance and nothing else matters, and we're going to kill each other and, you know, lift whatever we have to do because of that, and you know, got people throwing plates around everywhere and, you know, swearing, carrying on, and yeah, it's not sort of the gym that I want to create in that sense, or the area I want to create, or the people that you want to train. Now, I think we get hugely influenced by the media and social media as well. So, like you pointed out, most of us probably don't want to train like that, but we look at, you know, we're the kings of YouTube and queens of YouTube motivation. We watch all that, we get hyped up, we see that, and we think, oh yeah, we got to, you know, rise and grind, blah blah blah. We got to do this. This is how we train. We're going to crush the day. It's all bullshit. Like, it's, you know, you have that initial motivation. That's one of my principles. Like the three things I sort of go off. You know, principles over methods, you know, strength over weakness, discipline over motivation, and then you know, fulfillment over happiness.
Can we break those three down a little bit?
Well, principles over methods. Principles are long-standing. There's a reason they're principles. An example would be for like a nutritional principle would be looking at calories and macronutrients. So the calorie, the unit of measurement to describe how much energy is in food. Your macronutrients, your protein, your carb and fat. Those macronutrients will make up the total number of calories you have. Now, there's more optimal ways of doing things depending on what you're trying to achieve. Any diet you follow has to follow those principles. So keto is a method of eating. Paleo is a method of eating. Being vegetarian is a method. Being pescatarian is a method of eating. You're eating a certain way. Being vegetarian, you still have to have protein, carbohydrates, and fats, and you're still consuming calories. So that's the principle, but you can follow any method that you like. So when I say principles over methods, yes, we're following methods, but we're not so fixated on the method that we forget about the underlying principle of why we're actually doing what we're doing. Principle of strength training might be progressive overload. You know, we got to overload, you know, and overload's not just weight. Everyone thinks progressive overload, oh, we got to add weight every week. It's like you add, you know, 2.5 kilos every week to a lift. You do the maths on that, you'll be lifting dump trucks in a year or two. And you're like, well, it doesn't work like that because no one's doing that. So, you know, you get stronger for the first sort of 3 months, and then you realize that your program becomes a bit more complex as you start to go, but there are still ways of progressing. You've got to sort of slowly build up and build up again by reps, there's infinite number of possibilities of progressing, but everyone gets fixated on the weight. So progressive overload as a principle, you have a different set and rep scheme with a weight and, a program you're following. That might be a method, a type of programming, or you might use a type of periodization to program. That's sort of a method that you're using. But the underlying principle is you want to get stronger using progressive overload. That'd be one of the principles. Another principle is specificity. Paul talks a lot about this when he run the FightFit Challenge. I know I love strength and conditioning as well. I think I talked about this last time. You want to get better at boxing. You've got 8 weeks to fight. You better be boxing. The most specific thing you can do is a lot of sparring to prepare you for that. Pulling sleds, lifting weights, that is good, but it needs to be integrated into your approach. So you can still do that, but you probably do a little bit less of that. Your most important thing you're doing is boxing, and you're getting good at that. But you might be doing some of the other stuff to maintain your strength, to keep or try and develop as much power as you possibly can, but not at the cost of your boxing sessions. So you're not going to jump in and go 10 sets of 10 back squat and then go and do a boxing session, because I guarantee you your boxing workout will go to shit and you just be heavy doing it, So
Paul definitely does hammer that in a lot.
That's it. At the end of the day, you're getting up and you're fighting someone. That's the most specific thing you're doing. If you're competing powerlifting, we're squatting, we're benching, we're deadlifting. We're not running marathons, or we're not, powerlifting, we lift the weight once. We build, strength in the 4 to sort of 6 rep range, or 3 to 6 rep range is sort of our bread and butter work. Some people pull some heavy singles every session as well, just as a bit of a primer. But the closer we get to the meet, the more specific we're getting with everything. So a lot of the fluff exercises, you probably find there's not as much as them. You ever look at a powerlifting program a couple of weeks out, it's just squat, bench and dead. Most of it, would be just working on that, because it's a skill aspect as well. It's not just strength. Strength is a skill. It's your ability to skillfully produce that movement. This is what we found earlier today, working through breaking down the squat mechanics again. We didn't touch a barbell. We went through and broke down the squat mechanics and just worked on the skill. Even though you'll find your legs are sore. Yeah.
That was interesting. And I reckon I probably got more out of that. And I literally just did the warm-ups today. Yeah. And I reckon I probably got more out of that than I did the previous sessions that I was doing by myself, because I was actually concentrating my muscles and really focusing and getting that. So, and I think that I've heard the rule where you're meant to tense your muscles and all that. But when you actually have somebody looking over you and saying, do this, do this, do this, do this, you're actually engaging so much more. And it just...
And that's why I like that sort of face-to-face sort of coaching as well, because... And that's what I was talking about. I saw your program. I'm like, you'll make some good progress because you'll stick to it and you make some good progress, but you probably just beat yourself into the ground a little bit as well, because we just did the warm up on a few exercises and you're engaging everything. Imagine having that level of concentration for the volume of stuff that you're doing before. It was just probably a little bit too much in that sense.
Right.
Good program, but fairly generic and template.
I was expecting to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger within a few weeks.
16 weeks and you look like Arnie. Yeah.
Less than
100%. What's the secret to, so everyone sees everyone looking jacked, and even a lot of the top top competitors that have been doing it for ages. What's your secret? How do you do it? Speak to Paul. He'll tell you the same thing. So how do I look like that? And he'll say to you,
we are talking about the great Paul Fifield, by the way, guys. When we say Paul,
everyone knows that anyway.
Yeah,
I think everyone who tunes in, if you speak to him about training, it'd be very, very simple. He's consistent. He does things every day, and he eats well, and he gets enough sleep. That's it.
I think he hasn't had chocolates in 30 years. Or something.
That's just it. That's what he likes. But that's him.
He probably lived to 200 or something.
Everyone's after some little secret. But how do you do this? And he's got so many injuries. He manipulates the way that he does everything so he can target specific muscle groups. He figures out what works for him so he can target specific muscle groups. There's ways he can't do different pressing exercises some way because of shoulders, elbow injuries, back injuries with squatting, things like that. He's just figured out how to do things that work for him, and he's consistent and he trains and he eats well and he gets sleep. That's it. There's nothing else. And he's done it for decades.
Yep.
That's how he looks the way he looks.
And it can be very intimidating when you look at a person like that, because when we're doing the FightFit Challenge, we're doing 400 burpees. He doesn't break a sweat. Yeah. And he's 60 now and he's just in such amazing shape. But we don't necessarily have to be doing what he's doing to feel better about ourselves, to look better, to make progress.
But his level as well, he's able to withstand a lot more. So you looked at the volume of the program that you had, he would smash through that because he's built up tolerance over, and he's, I know he's got injuries or whatever, but he'd be able to he'd be able to hit that. I think he probably does about 45 minutes an hour, but they're quality-based sessions still. But he's built up such a foundation, and you see a lot of people that have trained a long period of time, they've built up such a foundation. All of the movements just look so smooth. Like, you watch him doing chin-ups, even watch him doing something like a bicep curl, or someone who's trained for a long period of time do the movements. They look graceful as well. They're quite skillful movements. They're deliberate movements. It's not just sort of, just stand in front of the mirror and, I'll just crank out a few of these. There's purpose behind everything that they're doing.
They know how to engage the proper muscle that they want to work and how to manipulate it for
That's
themselves.
Exactly right. Yeah.
That's the thing, though. It is almost like when you're doing it without any guidance or anything, you are just standing there, just going, just trying to get to 12 or trying to get to the end of the set.
And that will get you results. That will. And people go, well, I got good results with this, and because if you're starting from a lower base, anything will make progression. You go and pedal on a bike, and you're doing like really hard intervals. Your leg strength will go up because you're starting from a base of nothing.
Right.
But you learn to back squat properly, and all of a sudden, your leg strength will probably go up a lot more.
So principle over method.
Okay, that was
the first one.
That took a while to get through.
We'll try get through the rest of the two by today.
By two. Well, strength over weakness. That's pretty. It's self-explanatory, but it's physical strength over weakness. Like I always look at I can't see any downside to being strong. Mentally strong, physically strong. Just basically being strong in everything we do, and strong doesn't always have to be I'm physically strong. I'm physically doing this. Strong can be I'll use the FightFit challenge for an example because a lot of our listeners do that. Strong can be scared shitless of getting into that ring and absolutely shitting your pants and doing it anyway.
Yeah,
that's fucking strong.
Oh, I know the feeling.
That's really strong.
Yeah,
being really scared to do it and then doing it anyway. That's that's stronger than someone who's already done it and they look strong and they're lifting heaps of weights or whatever. Where's strong is sort of overcoming adversity, overcoming challenges.
Yeah,
that's how I look at that. Discipline over motivation. What I was talking a little bit about before, I think we've become the kings and queens of YouTube motivation. We love the idea of everything. We watch YouTube. We love the idea of, we're going to crush today. We're going to do this. We get that feeling, and the motivation. Don't get me wrong; it can be a really good thing, but too much of it, I think, can be quite detrimental because all you're relying on is you're watching all these clips of all these people training, or if you're flipping through your social media thing, and you're just your motivation is people's bodies, and then you get this unrealistic view of what you should be achieving. The discipline is sort of it's what I talked about. Train for decades, do things right, sleep, eat, nutrition, hydration, train, do them right. And everyone gets sick of people saying that because they're like, but there's got to be something else. And everyone says, no, I wouldn't,
It's always looking for like that sort of cheat or that easy way.
No one will ever admit to that because, but I'll say, I'm like, well, 8 years ago, the most popular YouTube or fitness YouTube station was, Mike Chan's six-pack shortcuts. He'd create these stupid little ads that came in. I think YouTube kicked him off, which was great. And at the end of the ad, he'd have this little special pill that, this will make you do this. University studied, blah, 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 blah. It was the biggest load of shit ever. He was the most subscribed person on YouTube.
Wow.
And, no one would ever admit to, probably subscribing to him. But I thought it was funny down the track. It was like, he was the most subscribed person on YouTube. But, people just fall for it. People, if there's something. If I did create a pill that could get you the body you wanted.
The fat
scientifically,
bullet.
Like absolutely.
Fat burning bullet. I saw that one.
You take this fat.
Tempted to get it.
You take this, and you will in 3 days you'll look like Schwarzenegger. People will jump on it. So if you can convince someone of that tell them a nice story and convince them. Yeah. So that's
when I saw. I saw that one. Fat Blaster once. Fat Blast bullet.
Fat Blast Bullet.
It's like a little thing you take,
Yeah.
and it was on an infomercial.
Yeah.
I was getting my credit card out. And
hopefully people are still listening. But I'll tell you a funny story about those. A lot of the way they used to market, and they probably still do.
Yeah.
They'll market a fat loss product. Increase this. They'll promise, the latest and greatest in blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
It will only work if you follow a sound. They'll have a little training plan, but what they'll talk about is, you can't eat rubbish, and you've got to follow a really good nutrition plan. And they'll start talking about absorption and all this rubbish of, how you've got to do all this for the pill to work. So then you'd have people that, all right, yeah, okay, the pill's the placebo, I'll take that, but I'm going to follow this really good diet because I'm taking this pill. And it's only going to work if I follow this diet and I start training. So they're spending hundreds of dollars on this pill, and then they're like, all right, well, now I better train and eat better because otherwise the hundreds of dollars I spent on the pill doesn't work.
Right.
They get these really good results, and they're like, fuck, that pill's really good.
Yeah.
That is fucking good. And they tell all their mates, and then they all buy it and do the same thing. Is it, they're all losing weight or whatever, but it's, it's a bit of false advertising.
If it works, the pill.
Wow,
But you can't sit on your couch and Fat Blast Bullet.
I should just start, creating sugar pills and doing that.
I wonder what the actual science is behind those, because there has to be some sort of accountability or some sort of corporate responsibility of somebody who's making a pill like that. There has to be some sort of science. They can't just put shit in a fucking pill and just give it and say, there you go.
Really?
Like they couldn't put, like, say, oatmeal and just little oat pills and say these are fat blasting oat pills.
Yeah, well, really? I think they as in who's regulating the industry.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
It's probably a different
there has
discussion.
To be some sort of auditing thing, like someone who says, okay, this is
that's
just
probably
shit.
That's probably a topic for a different day. But as in, as for independent studies that have been done on some of these products that have found certain substances in them as well. It's like some of the old pre-workouts had some very dodgy substances in them. And so, no, I don't think they were regulated very well. And
then you've got like the UFC fighters who are getting banned because they've got like small amounts of X thing that's a banned substance because they've been cooked. The supplements have been made in the same tank as something that hasn't been cleaned.
There was an Australian swimmer recently as well. I don't know from a bar of soap, but she was taking it was a pre-workout or something, and there happened to be a banned substance in it that it was it wouldn't have been steroid based or anything. It was just probably like a little stimulant or something that they've added to the and they mightn't have even included it in the ingredients. So a lot of the things that you look on the back and you're like, okay, so if you're an athlete, you'll go to you can look at your banned substance. There's apps you can use to check your banned substances. One of the athletes, or actually my partner Leanne, she has to stay on track with that because through Powerlifting Australia, they need to know her whereabouts so she can actually get tested. She's been tested once. That was straight after nationals. As soon as she finished her last lift, came off, and then they went through the process and tested her for substances. Obviously her she doesn't take any pre-workouts or anything like that. Pretty much for that reason, because you don't actually know what is in them, even though there is ingredients on the back that says what's in them. There can be other stuff if they're made on the same sort of conveyor belt as other things and what have you. Other ingredients can just sort of slip in, or they've been popped in or whatever. So for most athletes, no, I wouldn't recommend taking things like that.
Yeah.
Even if they say but there's nothing in it, all the ingredients are safe. You go and check, you check the substances, make sure they're all safe. If at the end of the day they're not safe, and you go, well, look, I did all of this, I've checked it all. This is what I've taken. The onus is still on you as the athlete, and you get banned. It's pretty cutthroat.
But
then you
see a lot of pretty harsh cases.
There is, but then there's the other thing. I won't mention names or anything, but there's people who get banned from different competitions, but they don't get thrown under the bus nearly as hard as some athletes that and they're still out selling their programs, making a lot of money. They've been banned, but no one really talks about that.
Right.
And some athletes get thrown under the bus, and I don't always think it's fair.
Yeah.
In that regard, like it'd literally be a mistake like that. But I think that this is, again, we waffle on about this for ages, but everyone says, well, why don't we just let everyone compete with
As much steroids as they want.
Take whatever they like. And, you look at that logically and go, yep, that makes sense. And, it does. But the essence of sport would be, well, what is sport? It's sort of a great equalizer.
Right.
And then what message is that sending to the younger generation coming through? You've got young kids coming through playing junior sport, all their heroes, it's just out there, everyone takes everything. It's like, it's literally sending to, 10-year-old playing sport in order to get better, boom, you got to take this, this, and this and get juiced up. And then what age do they start?
Right.
Does it then
and then how much are you damaging and polluting your body with these things?
Yeah.
And also your mental health. There's been sort of some sort of examples of people who have gone a bit crazy. Like there was that professional wrestler Chris Benoit who he's like, what did he kill his family and all that? Like just because he had real bad roid rage. It might have been obviously other contributing factors, but there was
probably a lot of other contributing factors. But
some pretty bad cases.
Yeah.
Anyway,
we're getting off the topic.
It's getting dark. I was going to say, so I
missed my last principle.
Oh, did I?
Yeah, you did. There was 4.
Wow.
Fulfillment over happiness was the last
that's
one.
Cute.
That was
Tell me about it.
It is cute. I like it. That's actually my favourite one.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, well, why don't you want to be happy? Why is fulfillment over happiness? You should be happy. I'm like, oh yeah, happiness is a feeling. It's okay to feel happy. It's also okay to feel sad. But being fulfilled when you do something, fulfillment's longer lasting. You wake up some mornings and you're happy and things are good. You've watched that YouTube motivate. Things are good, but other times you wake up, you've had a shit couple of weeks at work. Training's hard. You're still fulfilled because you understand where you're heading, but you're not necessarily happy. So if you're always chasing, there's always this big thing. Everyone's got to be happy,
instant gratification.
Yeah. I think that's bullshit as well.
Yeah.
You just,
getting a like on a photo makes you happy.
Yeah.
When someone tells you look sexy, it makes you happy.
Yeah, it makes me happy.
And also when someone tells you look ugly and fat, then it makes you feel unhappy.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
There you go.
But fulfillment is like it's more of like a long-lasting
thing.
Yep. As you said, you understand where you're going, the things that you're doing in your life are making you fulfilled.
That's it. Let's continue.
All right. So
how are we going to get you jacked in 16 weeks?
Yes.
Is that what you're going to ask?
I was going to ask because I am the guinea pig. I am a guinea pig.
A guinea pig.
Of some sort. Yeah. And over the next 16 weeks, I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. And I'm going to work with you. Yeah, so it's on record. And I want to, see how well I can do. So tell me about the progression of the 16 weeks for me and what I can expect.
Well, again, it's different for everyone. Like you say, you have an ideal image for 16 weeks. I would say, I know the goal is to look better, but we want to try and increase, like I said, you get back on track with your nutrition, increase your performance, let the scoreboard take care of itself. What can we expect? We can expect we've put on a little bit more muscle because we're going to be training using progressive overload. We're going to be increasing our volume as we go. Everything's not just going to keep increasing for 16 weeks. The way I'll structure it is probably 4-week blocks where we do a little bit more work each week. So each week we'll get a little bit harder. So then the 5th week will be harder than the first week, but the 5th week will also be less than the 4th week, if that makes sense. So we'll go up for a couple and then bring it back a touch. Go up, bring it back. So your 4th, your 8th, your 12th, and your 16th week of training will be your hardest training weeks in that respect. Now, there may be a couple of variables. You might have, I don't know, really hard week at work or whatever on week 7 for say, and you're absolutely cooked. Probably not a smart idea to then go in and cook yourself on week 8 if you know the next week's going to be pretty hard there as well. So This is where sort of dialing it back a little bit, individualizing things a little bit can come in there. But yeah, as a basic structure for the play, 4-week blocks. We'd look at starting with something like that. I'd use volume each week as the main driver of overload. So each week you can probably find that you're going to add a little bit more volume. So the number of total repetitions that you've done each week, and the weight will increase as needed there.
Do you think I can tighten up the old waistline as well?
Yeah. That will come more from
because you're burning calories.
That will come more from your nutrition. You are burning calories, but don't forget that, I think I talked about this last time, I think Michelle may have touched on this as well. Depending on your lifestyle, some people, we classify them as sedentary, even though they're training for maybe 4 times a week. So like, no, I train 4 times a week, but you're still sedentary because everything else you're doing outside of your training is fairly much sitting down. You're not getting as many steps in as well. So that's why I like people, the 10 to 12,000 steps. If you can do that each day, you're burning through a little bit more, a few more calories as well. For you, primary to start with, we actually want to try and just sort of see where your body's at for the first 4 weeks. Try and set some calories at the right level. So the first couple of weeks, we're sort of seeing how your body's responding to the training. You might find that your body will start what's called recomping straight away. So you might start increasing, maybe it looks like you're increasing muscle mass, but you're sort of swelling up a bit and then dropping a bit of body fat if you've got that muscle memory already there. Because you've already done a little bit of training before. You've got a degree of muscle mass and you've gone away on holiday. It seems like you've lost it, but it's still there. It's just sort of everything's a little bit smaller.
No, my body doesn't know what to do with itself right now.
Well, we can gain. Well, what I'm saying is you'll notice, you might notice progress, or your body will recomp in the first sort of 4 weeks or so. And by that I mean it's like you feel like you're increasing muscle mass and dropping a little bit of body fat. But you're just sort of recruiting everything that was already there. The muscles are now awake and they're big again, ready to sort of punch through the sessions. We clean up our diet a little bit and start, adhering to some of those nutritional protocols. See how your body responds, and then I'll decide how I feed you going from there. So my goal is to, pretty much feed you as much as I possibly can while still achieving the result that I want. Now, my goal isn't to make you huge, like absolutely huge. What was your current body weight at the moment?
Like 85.
And what did you want to get to? You want to stay around?
Idea.
You wouldn't.
I think I've got fat to lose, and then
that's exactly right. So, we're filming today's Thursday.
It is Thursday.
Sunday, this will be released.
Yes.
We'll be taking your measurements on Monday. So basically, we'll see, where your body's sitting, and every couple of weeks, I take some skin folds, and then see if we need to make any adjustments there. So if we're, keeping our fat in check, popping on a little bit of muscle, and then there'll be periods where we'll be losing a little bit of body fat there.
Right.
From a nutritional point of view, if you're looking at like periodizing your nutritional approach, so your training approach, we said 4 by 4 weeks type thing. Nutrition wise, I might spend a couple of weeks. We might do the first 4 weeks where we're sort of, just recomping, figuring out, I'll set your macros based off calculators and see how, where everything's sitting, and see how your body's tracking. Then from there we might go, right, well, we want to try and increase our muscle mass now, so we need to feed you more. Now, you may put on a little bit of fat as you do that. That's what people don't want to hear, but generally that's what happens if you want to build a little bit of muscle. We might only do that for 4 to 6 weeks, and then we'll maybe have a 2 week mini cut, or bring your calories back down to maintenance levels, and then we'll assess from there. Do we want to drop back down, or do we want to build back up? Generally, for 16 weeks, it's sort of an approach. It's much harder to build muscle than it is to lose body fat. Everyone, you can get yourself quite lean in, even progressively, 8 to sort of 12 weeks, you can get pretty lean. But even getting lean, I don't like, staying in deficits for too long. I just think it plays havoc with your system, and you just get too beat down. Your training suffers. So generally, if you're eating in a calorie deficit, some people maybe 4 weeks. Some people can only do it for 2 to 3 weeks before they have a break for a week. And by break, I don't mean go and eat whatever you want. It's like, all right, break, let's still follow the protocol, but let's bring our calories back up to maintenance level. Now, this is assuming the person can track what they're doing and understands the principles. If it's someone that I'm working with that's got no knowledge of nutrition whatsoever, then it's probably more about tracking habits, taking pictures of the food and working with them in that slower capacity, and then concentrating on training, progressive overload. The body will change. And then once you can adhere to the principles a little bit more, then you'll find that you can fine-tune those changes. But if we go straight to the, you understand how to track calories, but for someone who can't, if we go straight to those principles, you get the issue where, you key in your chicken risotto on, your tracker. I mean, I use my own one as well, but you key it in there, it might be different than what you've actually done. You're not creating your own recipes. As to what results that you're going to get, to be completely honest, you're going to build muscle, and we can drop body fat. I know we can do that, but as to what you will look like, I can't say here we'll look like this. How much muscle can you build? You can maybe add a pound, depending on where you are, maybe a pound and a half per month. If you're training progressively, doing everything, correctly like that, how much weight would you lose? How much body fat would you look at losing? Anywhere between, maybe half a kilo a week of body fat is a good place to start. Now, would we do both together? Probably, maybe for the first 4 weeks, you might find your body does that. But then we go, right, what's the goal? Is the goal to get as lean as possible and to hold on to all the muscle we have so we can shred down, get the abs, but hold on to all the muscle we have? Or is the goal to add muscle to the frame to then later down the track, then shred down so I look a little bit bigger? So you might be 85 kilos now. Depending on your body fat measurements, you might want to get down to sit maybe at 12%. It's just a rough metric, but 12% body fat, rather than dropping right down to single digits all the time, because you might find that that's not as healthy for you. You can't sustain everything. It'll look great for a photo shoot. Don't get me wrong, but for every day, you can every day, so you can function every day. Be lean, be fit, be healthy. Around that mark, you can get down to, if that's the goal there, you'd probably, you'd be in the 70s then.
Awesome.
To do that. But if your goal was to then build muscle, you'd probably, maybe push it up towards 90.
Well, we will see, and then anyone who's watching will also see, because we'll check in maybe 8 weeks, maybe 12 weeks, maybe even 16.
There we go.
We'll chat with each other about it and decide when's a good time to do it.
Yep.
But yeah, otherwise, I mean, for anyone who wants to get involved, as we said, MD Strength, Instagram, it's an awesome new project. How can they get involved?
You can contact me on Instagram. There's a number at FightFit as well. Webpage mdstrength.com.au. If you're interested in what I'm doing here, you can just hit lifting crew at the top, and that'll give you a whole list of everything that I offer there.
Yep. Or you can just poke your head into FightFit Boxing Centre at 29 White Street, South Melbourne.
That's it.
If you'd like to.
Love to see you.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for watching, guys. Mark,
thank you very much.
Always a pleasure, and I'm really looking forward to the next 16 weeks.
Same here.
See you later, guys.
Thank you, guys.